Well lads, I'm finally doing it. I've been putting it off for as long as possible, and for good reason. Let me introduce you to the first top tier premium I ever bought. This is the SAKO Kal Dalet, an Israeli modification of the aging Centurion Mark X. Arguably a tank that was already pushing its design limits. The Israelis equipped the tank with new blazer explosive reactive armour, a new diesel engine, as well as a high penetration APF SDS round. Alright lads, today I'm going to be talking about the weapons and performance of the SAKO Kal Dalet. Starting as always with the basics, this vehicle is a rank 6 battle rating 8.3 main battle tank located in the British tech tree. Being a rank 6 premium, it will be effective at researching all vehicles between the ranks of 1 and 7, allowing you to grind out every tank currently in the British tech tree. To unlock this tank, you'll have to purchase it on a pack on the Guardian store. For the cost of €60, you get the tank, 2,000 golden eagles, and 15 days of premium time. After buying the SAKO Kal, you will have an additional cost of 10,000 silver lions to train the crew. To purchase an Expert Liaise qualifications, it will cost you 790,000 silver lions and 2,000 golden eagles respectively. The tank is also fairly economically friendly to play, only having a repair cost of 3,710 silver lions. Going on to the rewards, and the SAKO Kal Dalet actually has a lower RP modifier than the Roycat 105, the other rank 6 British premium. Nevertheless, you can expect a 428% modifier with a free-to-play account and 642% with a premium account. However, the SAKO Kal has a higher silver line modifier than the Roycat, giving you a silver line modifier of 280% with a free-to-play account and 420% with a premium account. In terms of customization, there are several camouflages available to purchase for Golden Eagles, but this tank has no marketplace skins. In terms of lineups, there are plenty of pretty good vehicles at battle rating 8.3, including the two Chieftains, the Roycat 76mm version, the Warrior Falcon and the Striker. In this video we're going to cover the mobility, armour and firepower of the vehicle, before finishing with a conclusion. If you do like these sorts of reviews, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing. Starting with the engine and mobility, and the tank is powered by an engine producing 750 horsepower. Combined with the vehicle's weight of 54 tons, it gives the shot an awful power to weight ratio of 13.9 horsepower per ton, giving it only slightly more mobility than a Tiger E. No joke, this is awful, and is by far the least powerful rank 6 premium in the game. I'd pay $60 not to play this shite. Moving on to the transmission, and you initially are fairly well off, with a top speed of 48 km/h. This is by no means bad, but your low power to weight ratio means you don't really reach that speed. Being of British pedigree, it naturally has an awful reverse speed of 11 km/h. While not as bad as the Soviet premiums, it is dog awful compared to the NATO XM1 AMX30 Super and Leopard L44, all of which are also €60 premiums. The tank does have the ability to neutral steer, but again, the low power means the rate of traverse is very low, leaving the tank feeling incredibly sluggish in low speed turns. Overall, the mobility of the SAKO Kal is abysmal for a battle rating 8.3 vehicle. Your mobility is worse than some of the super heavy tanks such as the T10M and Object 279. Not only is the tank slow to accelerate, its ability to turn is also very poor, giving the tank a distinctive bloated feeling. This lack of mobility is probably the biggest issue I have with this vehicle, as it severely limits your tactical options in a fight. You can't really run or push fast enough, you just have to arrive at the battle and hope you're in a good position. Moving on to the armour and survivability, and the first thing to mention is that the SAKO Kal has a crew of 4 men. While normally this would give you relatively good survivability, as you can see the crew are conveniently lined up. The driver, gunner and commander are in a nice straight line, and as we'll see shortly, the armour of this tank isn't reliable enough to keep enemy rounds out. And when rounds penetrate, they are devastating. Even if it misses the 3 crew members, all of your ammunition is stored to either the right of the driver or next to the gunner. This means if the tank gets shot in the left hand side, it will kill 3 crew members, instantly killing the tank, whereas shooting the tank in the right hand side will result in an ammunition detonation, also instantly killing the tank. €60 price tag. The tank does have one silver lining however, and that is the addition of Blazer ERA blocks. These give you an additional 260mm of protection against chemical warheads, and a lousy 5mm of protection against kinetic energy penetrators. Moving on to the amp performance itself, and to test this, we'll be using the DM23 round fired by the Leopard A1A1. Starting as always with the lower frontal plate, and as you can see the armour protection ranges from 120mm all the way up to 150mm of armour. Basically mincemeat to high power rounds found at battle rating 8.7. Moving upwards, and our upper plate provides 210 to 220mm of armour. If we move up towards the turret, the cheeks are pretty much easily penetrated by all of the top tier rounds, only providing around 180 to 200mm of armour protection against this German round. The breach, however, is a little bit better, exceeding 250mm of armour in some places. If we turn the camera to the side of the vehicle, protection decreases substantially, down to around 85mm at the front, dropping as low as 58mm in some areas. If we move up to the turret, and the protection is a pretty much constant 90mm of thickness. And finally, the rear of the turret provides 85mm of armour, and the rear of the hull provides just 55mm of armour. Overall, the armour of the shot Kal Dalet is nothing special. While you do have some ERA panels, they are pretty meaningless at battle rating 8.3, where you frequently face dart launching 8.7 tanks. While you do have the same trolley, hull and turret armour as the other Centurions, this shouldn't be relied on, as you're no longer facing APC-BC rounds, you're facing modern projectiles that basically lap at traditional cemented steel armour. Moving on to the weapons and ammunition, and as you can see, the shot Kal Dalet is armed with the 105mm Sharia cannon, essentially a clone of the famous L7 gun. Being a modernised vehicle, the gun is fully stabilised in both the vertical and horizontal planes, as well as having pretty much NATO standard 18 degrees of gun elevation and 10 degrees of gun depression, allowing you to peek over hills and ridgelines very well. You can carry 72 rounds in total in this vehicle, with 16 of those rounds being classed as first stage ammunition stored next to the gunner. It doesn't really matter if you take more than 16 rounds into battle with this tank, as all of your ammunition is vulnerable. So taking a look at the reloading skill under the loader section, and you can see that we have a base reload speed of 7.7 seconds, which drops down to 6.7 seconds with an ace crew. This is bog standard for our 105mm NATO guns, so while it is good compared to Soviet vehicles at this battle rating, you don't really have an advantage over NATO tanks. Moving on to the targeting skill under the gunner section, and we can see that you have a base turret rotation speed of 17 degrees per second, which rises to 24 degrees per second with an ace crew. Like the hull traverse, this turret traverse is also pretty mediocre for the battle rating, although it is better than contemporary Soviet vehicles such as the T-62. Next we move to the modifications, and I want to point out that this tank gets access to a laser rangefinder, but unfortunately it does not get access to any sort of thermal optics, unlike most other top tier premium tanks. You also have a pretty disappointing field of view in the gunner sight, as well as a base 4.9x zoom and an optional 6x zoom, not quite giving you that high power zoom needed for long range shots. Moving on to the ammunition, and we have 4 rounds available, 1 stock and 3 unlockable. Your stock shell is the M152 Heat FS round, travelling at 1173 meters per second and capable of penetrating 400mm of flat armour. This round is certainly an incredibly powerful stock or free shell, especially when it is down tiered. You also have access to the M156 Hesh shell, travelling much slower at 732 meters per second and having much less penetration at only 127mm. While Hesh is useful against lightly armoured targets, I believe the stock Heat FS performs far better in this role. Besides, Hesh shells have been nerfed into the ground with recent updates, so their performance is rather hit or miss. While not being a lethal round, you also have access to the M416 smoke shell. It has a similar muzzle velocity to the Hesh round, but produces a smoke cloud with a radius of 20 meters, which lasts for 25 seconds. But the star of the show when it comes to the shot Kal Dalet is the M111 APF SDS round. This round weighs 3.8 kilograms, travels at 1,455 meters per second, and is capable of penetrating 337mm of flat armour. And even against armour angled at 60 degrees, it can still penetrate 195mm of armour. This is essentially a clone of the German DM23 round that we use to compare our armour, at least it is in game. This round is very powerful, and is typically only found on battle rating 8.7 vehicles and above, so in a down tier, this tank is very powerful. The shot Kal also has a single 50 caliber machine gun, as well as 3 rifle caliber machine guns. The usefulness of these guns is rather questionable however, as the 50 cal is unable to elevate its gun very far. And rounding out your loadout, you have 20 smoke grenades. Overall, the shot Kal is one of the best guns at battle rating 8.3, but when up to 8.7 or higher, which is pretty common, the gun is the definition of average. It equips pretty much every other NATO vehicle. Due to being slow and having very little armour, this tank should be played as a sniper, using your great long range gun performance to knock out enemies before they even have a chance to exploit your own weaknesses. When down tiered, you can pen anything you see, but when up tiered, combined with your weak armour, it's you who'll be penned by anything you see. To conclude, the shot Kal Dalet is the perfect example of power creep in War Thunder. At one point, it was an ideal premium. Not too good, not too bad, just as a balanced premium should be. But now the Dalet is completely outclassed both by the newer premiums, as well as the new tech tree vehicles at a similar battle rating. While the tank is powerful in a down tier, it struggles immensely in equal and up tiered matches. Unlike the T55AM, another battle rating 8.3 premium, the shot is incredibly slow and has no real armour to speak of, but as we've covered, the shot does have a powerful gun. To be honest, the shot Kal Dalet is basically a reverse T55AM. Everything the 55AM does well, the shot does poorly, and vice versa. While the gun is good, the lack of mobility is the absolute killer of this tank. You are essentially running around the battlefield fighting modern Leopard A1A1s in a vehicle that has the same mobility as a World War II medium tank. It leads to some very frustrating gameplay, where you just aren't fast enough to have a tactical advantage on the battlefield. For a price of €60, this is an absolutely do not buy. While I'm not the biggest fan of the Roycat 105, it is undeniably a better premium, and to be honest, buying a talisman for the Chieftain Mark III or Mark V is far cheaper and gets you an arguably more effective grinder. It's important to remember, this is just my opinion. I'd love to know what you guys think of this overpriced junk. If you have any questions, criticism, positive or negative, I would even like to request a review, please feel free to leave a comment below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if I did my job correctly, hopefully you should have learned something new about this vehicle. If you do enjoy these sorts of videos, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing, but more importantly lads, I hope you have a great day, and thank you very much for watching.